Welcome to the Tudor Dixon Podcast. I'm Tudor Dixon, and I'm so glad to have you here today because today we are joined by the internet's dad, Rob Kenney. You might have seen one of his YouTube videos where he has amassed over 4.5 million followers for his Dad How Do I style videos that give practical advice, teach us how to do projects around the house like how to unclog the bath drain, and give us our daily dose of dad jokes. But most importantly, Rob is stepping out as the father figure for those in need. Rob, thank you so much for joining me today.
You bet. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Tudor.
I am really excited about it because I love what you're doing. There are so many people out there that right now feel like they don't have that figure in their lives for various reasons. I mean, either kids that have gone to college, people that are trying to make it on their own, some folks that come from a broken home and maybe haven't had that dad figure. And you've been able to do this, but it was kind of a COVID-inspired thing. I know it had been in your mind for a while, but explain what really pushed you toward doing this.
Yeah, I thought of the idea a few years prior, and then during the pandemic, I ran out of excuses. My daughter, she's 31 now, so she was 28 at the time. She kept pushing me to do it, and I kept coming up with excuses like everybody else. I procrastinate, but I ran out of excuses because I was locked up like everybody else. And so I did How to Tie a Tie. I started my channel, ironically, on April Fool's Day. So it was April 1st of 2020. And then I did my first upload on April 2nd, which was How to Tie a Tie. And it wasn't a big commitment, right? Just tying a tie. I thought I would just throw that one up there and kind of throw my hat in the ring and see what happened.
It's so interesting. Actually, one of the guys in our office was like, I learned how to tie a tie from him. So it was effective. A lot of people saw it, which I think is awesome and amazing. But it's something that so many people have tried to capture. I mean, it's like getting lightning in a bottle, right? Being able to do something and have people really see it. So what do you think it was that sparked so many people to come on? Because you continue to bring in new followers all the time, right?
I do. Yeah, it continues to go on an upward trend, and my Facebook and my Instagram continue to grow. So, I think I thought I was just going to show people how to tie a tie or how to shave. In my ignorance, it turns out it's resonating on a completely different level where people are crying watching me tie a tie, or crying watching me shave, or listening to me shave in the background, just having that run while they're doing something, and the comfort of maybe what those memories were. Maybe you didn't have the memories, maybe you had a bad experience. And so there's so many different stories that I hear. And if you go to my channel, you'll see the comments, and a lot of them are heartbreaking, some are heartwarming, but yeah, it's just resonating on a level that I didn't anticipate. I thought I was going to have 30 or 40 followers and just have this tight little group where I was downloading nuggets from that I had to learn the hard way, a lot of them.
Well, you must have a pretty diverse audience of folks who have maybe lost a dad or don't have a dad for various reasons. I mean, lost a dad to death. Maybe someone has a parent serving overseas, but you're kind of there to be able to give them that advice. And probably a lot of moms have been incredibly grateful to you. Do you hear from moms very often?
Oh, yeah. Yep, quite a bit. Like you said, it's kind of all over the place. And I start my videos by saying, hey, kids, and I have 80-year-old kids. So, I try to just, make it heartwarming and make people feel loved, and to the best of my ability, where you come in and just, you learn something and you feel better when you walk away. That's what my goal has been all along. And I'm a man of faith. And so I feel like, in my finite fallen way, I'm showing a little bit of God's love, and I think He's touching people's hearts through it. Again, I'm just a man. I'm doing the best I can. I certainly can't represent God, but I can, to the best of my ability, try to represent Him the best I can.
I love that, because I think oftentimes in this world we are trying to step in for God. There's so many people that are like, okay, I can do this all on my own, and you sort of had that experience in life where you felt like you kind of had to do it all on your own. And when you accepted God as your Savior and Jesus as your Savior, that really changed how you look at the world. And I think that's an incredible message to send to people. You're not doing this all alone. You don't have to be doing this. And you don't really push it in these messages. You just kind of leave the God loves you message out there, right?
I do. Yeah, I end my videos by saying God bless you. And I've had people say, "Oh, you shouldn't say that." I'm like, you know what? I'm sure you've had worse things
Yeah,
to do than
that's a
God
good
bless you. I'm going to leave it in because that is who I am. And in any interview that I have, I'm happy to share about my faith. I try. It's tough. I don't want to look like I'm compromising or what have you, but I do want anybody and everybody to feel welcome, whatever walk of life you are. And and I do have some wisdom Wednesdays where I do share, hints of scripture too. So I try to drop that in as well, but I also don't want to scare people off by shining a light in their face, so there's a balance there of trying to make sure that I'm doing it correctly.
I think we're in the same situation there because having gone through the political machine, I guess I would say it was similar where people, you get a lot of advice, this is your faith, but don't push your faith. And you kind of want to make sure that you are careful about not offending people. But I think that is sort of the Christian message in general, is to live your faith and let people see it. I mean, if you study the Bible is really telling you live like Jesus and people will see that.
Yeah, I think so. And I have my devotion every morning, and so I'm constantly, making sure that I'm doing what I believe the Lord would have me to do. And I was struggling early on because, again, I didn't realize I was going to have such a large following. And I do feel a responsibility with that platform to make sure that I'm doing what God would have me to do, because I see everything through that lens. That's how I see life. I recognize that my life is a vapor. I'm almost 60, I turned 59 in May. And I feel like I was just a kid, just, not that long ago. And so it goes by so quick, and understanding life from an eternal perspective, I think, is huge because it gets you through, you run into different trials or what have you, but you recognize that in this life, everything is temporary. And so that has always helped me.
And any success and any followers, they come from him anyway. And so he obviously is wanting, this is the path that he wants you on. How long, for our listeners? I mean, I know a lot of people try to do something like this and they look at your situation, they go, gosh, that just happened overnight. What a lucky guy. How long did it actually take you to get to the point that you're at right now with followers?
Yeah, so it's been a little over 3 years, but my channel did go viral during the pandemic. So I started my channel in April, like I said, and then it went viral end of May. And I only had like 6 or 7 videos at the time. But I think a lot of it has to deal with my backstory, because I'm one of 8 kids. I'm number 7, and my dad and mom started out really well, but then when then it started to fall apart. I won't get into that. You can read my book if you if you want to know more. But around when I was 14, my dad decided he didn't want to have kids anymore, which isn't really an option. My mom couldn't take care of us, so I went to live with my brother. He was 23 at the time.
That's a pretty critical age to just be, and for 23, I mean, that must have been a moment in life that really kind of, I mean, a person can be rocked over that. And look at you now. This is impressive.
Well, it's God, it'd be crazy for me to try to take the credit. God worked on me and worked on me and got me to finally forgive my dad. And I'm embarrassed to say again that I became a Christian when I was like 27, 28, before my daughter was born, right before she was born. And then it took me a long time to forgive my dad. I held that for probably 20 years. Even as a believer, I realized I should forgive, but I couldn't find the strength to do it until I heard, that saying that says unforgiveness is like drinking poison and hoping it hurts the other person. And that really hit home with me. That was me. I was drinking the poison and spinning that plate and spending energy keeping that thing alive of wanting to not forgive my dad. And so when I finally let go of that, there was freedom for me on the other side. And that's the main reason I even share the story, is to try to encourage other people to forgive, because forgiveness is powerful.
I think some of the people who can speak into your life the best are those who were saved later in life, because you can see both perspectives and you can really fully understand where that unsaved person is and where their heart space is, and that confusion and that feeling of being lost is. And so I think that probably contributes a lot to your success in being able to reach people in their heart space and encourage them, because you're not coming to them from the perspective of you have to live this way. It's, hey, I know where you are. I've been there and I can talk to you about this. And forgiveness is one of those things that is really, really a challenge, especially for folks who feel like they're in that heart space where you feel lost and you don't know which way. You don't really have a North Star. You don't have that faith in God leading you. And so I love the fact that you have this experience, that you're able to bring this and to talk about forgiveness. I mean, we just had this at church a few weeks ago. Our pastor was talking about forgiveness. And I think it's something that you and I have talked about is important, that a lot of people feel like you need to have that person come to you and say, I want you to forgive me. And you learned over time and you held on to it. And I know you talk about feeling guilty that you held on to it, but gosh, God has a plan for you to be able to speak from a place of knowing and for your heart to be pure in understanding this. And so you lived this and you realized it doesn't take that person coming to you to ask you for forgiveness, does it?
It doesn't, because if you're, if you're waiting for them to ask you, they might have moved on in their lives and not even feel like they need to ask for forgiveness. And meanwhile, it's killing you. So it's in your best interest to forgive and not wait for, it seems so obvious to me now, this side of it. What was I thinking? But I'm grateful that I finally got there. And, I will share one thing too, that I think there's victim mentality in our society where people want to, for some reason, ride the whole victim thing, and there's people that have been through way worse than me. So please don't, I'm not going to act like I went through the worst anybody's ever gone through. People have been through worse, but there's a lot of people that haven't really been through much, and yet they still want to, have people feel sorry for them and feel like, I want to play a victim. It's just not beneficial. I've found, once you can take control of your own life and go, you know what, this is my life. I'm no longer going to have that thing hanging over me. I'm going to go do what I want to do, and do what God would have me to do. There's freedom in that, and it's amazing, because then you can learn and do anything, and the world's wide open to you.
Well, I think that is a message that people are dying to hear right now. There is a path for you. There's a path forward, and there's a successful path forward, and you can get there. And I believe that that's why listening to what you have to say is so valuable to people, because too often today, our kids are being bombarded with messages of, you don't fit in. You shouldn't be happy. This is some place where you can claim victimhood. And you're really telling people, you don't, I've been in this bad situation, and I can tell you on the other side, you don't have to be a victim.
Absolutely. And, I try to encourage people to break the cycle of, if you didn't have a good example, that doesn't mean you have to, continue that on. You can do it a different way. Be the dad you wish you had, and it's sad, the fatherlessness in our society, and how fathers are kind of mocked a little bit and act, like Homer Simpson. The Simpsons are funny, but also within that, you kind of get a little bit of disdain for fathers. And then also Al Bundy, some of that stuff. I think it has a trickle down effect. And I loved being a dad. I did. I still am a dad, my kids are adults. And so we relate on a different level. So if I can help in even a small way to encourage dads to understand, it is cool to be a dad. Pour yourself into your kids, and you have that be your legacy.
And for your daughter to be the one that's encouraging you to do this, she must know what an incredible dad that you've been. But it is interesting to me, because at 14, being on your own, and really even at 23, having your brother there, I mean, there's still a lot at 23 that you have to learn. Where did you learn all of this that you're able to share it?
I did learn a lot from that brother, from my brother Rick. I have to give him credit, and his wife as well, Karen. They were newlyweds. They were married in October of 78. I moved in with them in January of 79. And so they were 23 and 24 newlyweds in a trailer. I used to call it a mobile home, but they were in an 8-foot by 35-foot trailer, and suddenly they have a 14-year-old kid. So you know, more power to them, right? The fact that they took me in when they felt like it was the right thing to do. So I learned a lot from him. My brother Rick he's retired now, but he's a journeyman carpenter. So I learned a lot of things
Oh,
from him.
wow.
Certain things that I had to learn on my own. I learned how to tie a tie from my roommate when I was 19. I learned how to shave. I can't remember exactly how I learned how to shave. It might have been Rick. I can't remember. But yeah, so I learned things kind of all over the place. And one thing that Rick taught me was to not really be afraid to fail. You know, because he's, again, a journeyman cabinet maker, and he's doing everything exactly the way it's supposed to go. And then I would help him and I go, oh no, I messed this up. And he goes, don't worry. Yeah, we'll do this. We'll fix it this way. We'll fix it that way. You know, he's very good at pivoting and kind of covering your mistakes. So that helped
I
me a
think
lot.
that's something that, I mean, throughout life, you learn that you actually learn the most through failure. I mean, even running for office, you learn a lot when you lose, and you got to take that with you. You can't let failures get you down, because without failures, you have no successes.
That's absolutely true. I did a Wisdom Wednesday on that about, I've done a few, but making mistakes. You know, I remember when I was learning how to ski, and if you never fall when you're skiing, you're probably not getting any better. If you're
Right.
pushing
Yeah.
yourself and you're falling, that means you're trying things that maybe, you know, that are out of your comfort zone. And it's the same way in life. If you're so cautious that you don't ever want to make a mistake, well, you're not really trying anything then, because you're going to make mistakes. And I compare it to baby steps. I talk about baby steps a lot, because when you're a baby, you don't just give up walking. You know, you try to, you don't overthink it. You're a baby, you get up and you walk, and oh, I fell, and I get up and I walk, and pretty soon you're walking.
That's
As
right.
adults, as adults, we go, I'm just no good at this. I'm going to stop because I'm just not good at it. Well, you got to give yourself a fair shot, with the failures.
No matter what age you are, there are always voices that will be speaking into you saying, nope, you can't do this. You're not good enough. And you've got to push past those. And I think that's something that young people today haven't realized, that happens to all of us. You are not alone. When you feel like you cannot do something, when you feel very defeated, you are not alone. You have to push past it. The pushing past it part is what makes you a different person, a better person, a more determined person. But you mentioned something that I want to go back to, because you mentioned the whole Al Bundy's and the way the media portrays parents. Now, I've found with my kids in this generation, there are a lot of shows that are specifically for kids, where the kids are playing pranks on the adults. The parents are always kind of doofuses. They're acting like idiots. The kids are leading the way. They're managing the household not in a good way. They're managing the parents not in a good way. And that's been something, as a mom, I've started to kind of shut those shows off, because even my husband, he was like, they feel like it's like they think they're in charge. And we see this across a lot of different families. We actually saw a comedian over the weekend who said, I'd like to take today's kids back to 1982 and have them see some of our parents and the way they acted with us, because they would be shocked by how you have to respect adults differently. How do you think that you combat that in the media? I mean, you seem to be doing a great job. I think the fact that you have as many followers as you do means that concept of kids really wanting some discipline, wanting to know that there are boundaries. 4.5 million followers must mean that's true.
Yeah, I think so. You know, the wholesomeness too. You know, I try to keep everything wholesome, where I'm not swearing. I try to just, you know, try to be a guide to different people. I compare it to fast food too. You know, we have so many options for fast food, and oh, I'm hungry. Do I want to take the time to eat the meal, or do I want to go get fast food? And I'll just eat fast food, and then you eat fast food, and then you go, it doesn't really feel really good, but I guess I satisfied my hunger, but I don't really feel great. And I think, you know, a home cooked meal, you feel good when you take the time and you cook the home cooked meal, and then, you know, you eat it and you feel you not only cooked, but you also were nourished better than fast food. And I think on social media and TikTok, where people are swiping and swiping and swiping and swiping, they're eating fast food and
Yeah.
wondering what they're missing. And then when I'll show how to make meatloaf, or I'll show how to do something on my channel, and people just kind of hanging out with me, and the people that actually can, it's funny still, you see it's a 10-minute video and people hang for a minute and a half. I'm like, you couldn't have just stayed there for 10 minutes. I mean,
Oh, our attention span is so bad now, isn't it?
horrible. Yeah. So
But there must be, I mean, you have a lot of people that are tuning in. So do you do a lot of recipes and things like that? Because that's another thing. We had someone on the podcast early on who was talking about the health of our young people and just the way we're eating right now. Apparently, our young people, and I'm talking about elementary school, we're seeing fatty livers in these kids. We're seeing a lot of obesity. And so that's something that I think we also need to learn. We've got a lot of people that have come, my generation is kind of the kids that had their own key. They're coming home after school. They're feeding themselves. And so we probably started some bad habits with this change to having two parents working in the house when I was a kid to now. Most homes are two parents working and kids are left on their own more often, these latchkey kids. So what is the message that you get to young people so that they understand there are healthy ways of eating?
yeah, I try to share that. I also think life needs to have a balance. There's a time to have fast food, right? I mean, I'll eat fast food occasionally, but you just can't, that can't be an everyday thing that you do. So you need to have a balance, and it's good to enjoy life let's go out for dinner or what have you. And so I do try to, not be unreasonable that we all just need to gnaw on carrots. We need to, you need to live your life as well. So I'm trying to share recipes that I'm familiar with. Some of them may not be the best for you, so I'm not going to say that all
I
of
think
them
it's different though, even comfort food that you're making at home, I would say that it's made in a different way. The process is different. And I think that there's a healthiness to just making your own food and spending time with family. I think that there's also something to be said for that.
I agree. Yeah, I think there's something, yeah, with the experience of cooking together. Or,
Yeah.
I think one thing too with it's funny because sometimes, we don't stop and pull ourselves back and go, what am I doing here? What choices am I making? But meanwhile, life's going by, and you see people like having dinner and everybody's on their phones.
Yeah.
Well, can we put the phone down for like 30 minutes and connect? I always thought that was so important. We didn't have that issue because our kids were, they're a little older, but uh like dinner, we always made sure we'd gather together for dinner so that you could reconnect and spend that time talking about your day. And we carved that time out and made sure we kept it. May not have been exact same time every time, but we made sure that we had dinner together because felt like that was important. And you see so many families running here and running there and running here and running there, and they're not carving out that time that I think is important.
You've got such a diverse series of videos. I mean, you have messages of inspiration. You're talking about recipes. You're talking about tying a tie, fixing things, all of this stuff. What have been some of the most popular videos that you've put out there?
Yeah, the tying a tie was because it was the first one, and I think, and I tried to simplify it. And I also, say, don't have a fat tie or a fat knot and a short tie because that's dorky. And I had even people say, "Oh, don't say dorky." I'm like, "Come on."
Yeah.
I mean, people scrutinize everything, but I did one where I said, "I'm proud of you," because I think it is important to be able to share your heart with your kids. A trained monkey can run around and fix things. I wanted to be more than that. I wanted to be able to share my heart with people, and I thought that was important with my own kids too. So that's why I'm thankful for Wisdom Wednesday, where I try to talk about a quote and share what I think about that quote. And even that, people will scrutinize, well, that person said this back in 1965, so I can't listen to anything he says. Like, I did a video that said, if we're only looking for quotes from perfect people, there'd be no quotes, aside from Jesus, of course, but there'd be no quotes because we're all imperfect. But you can learn something from everybody. And so I try to, so Wisdom Wednesdays have become really popular. Yeah, and because there's so much more to being a dad than just fixing things. I think it's important to fix things, but it's so much more important to pour your heart into your kids.
What's it like for your kids to share their dad?
Since they're older, it's okay. My daughter, actually, she ended up doing something else because she wanted to have a normal relationship with me. So she kind of helped me with this, and we were doing it. And then she was like, you know what, I'd like to have a little bit of a normal relationship again with you. And so I'm grateful for that. So she's doing good. And I called my son when it first went viral and said, Kyle, are you okay with this? I said, because my family's more important to me than anything. I said, if you don't like this, I said, I'm happy to take it down. I won't post anymore. He said, Dad, if I was 9 years old and you were chasing this, he said, I'd probably have a problem with it, but you did good. I'm good. So he's out he works for Amazon out in Arlington, Virginia. So he's clear across the country from me.
Wow. Wow. Well, it is amazing. I love your story. You are kind of the king of dad jokes. So I think you need to leave our audience with a few dad jokes so that they can share them with their family.
I don't know about the king. So a couple of my favorites are, my son said he didn't understand cloning. I told him that makes two of us.
That is a very good dad joke.
And did you hear about the short psychic who escaped from prison?
No.
He's a small medium at large.
Those are good ones. I mean, honestly, that's the best part about this is that no matter what age you are, you can tune in and listen and learn something and take something away, even if you're just sharing the dad jokes. So before I let you go, I want you to tell people where they find it and where they find the book.
Yeah, so the book's available on Amazon and at Barnes and Noble too. It's just called Dad, How Do I? So, and then I have Facebook, Dad, How Do I? Instagram, Dad, How Do I? I'm on TikTok at The Real Dad, How Do I? Because somebody was pretending to be me, so I had to put in The Real Dad, How Do I? And then on my big channel is YouTube, Dad, How Do I?
Well, don't miss him. Make sure you check out the real Rob Kenney. He's the internet's dad and the creator of Dad, How Do I on YouTube and all of those other places. Rob, thank you so much for being with us today.
You bet. Thanks for having me on, Tudor.
Absolutely. And thank you all for joining us on the Tudor Dixon Podcast. For this episode and others, go to TudorDixonPodcast.com. You can subscribe right there or check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And join us next time on the Tudor Dixon Podcast. Have an awesome day.